Got it. All right, awesome. So start off the Mike Tyson one. This is the original control. So Justin shared the one that I kind of did to beat it. But I want to go through this. I'm going to read through the lead and the headline pretty much just nonstop to let everyone see that. I will put links in the chat too. So here's a link in the chat for the original here. And then I'll come back and kind of talk about, analyze it and share some thoughts. And from there, we'll kind of then go to my beat your control version of this lead. And we will talk about, what's different, the thought process and intentionality, etc. There is another version that did have a slightly better headline. I couldn't find that one that Steve was also testing. Steve was the offer owner. But most of the copy was basically the same. So let's just go. Right? Life hit me in the face and I knew I needed a plan. Every day I lost a little more strength, a little more speed, and a little more pride. Every ounce of muscle lost replaced with a pound of fat or more. I had to find a way to get my energy, my body, and my life back, to stop feeling like I was slipping away a piece at a time. And all the solutions you've heard of and maybe even tried, from eating more protein and even exercise, might be making the problem worse. My name is Mike Tyson. I don't like to brag anymore, but I know you've heard of me. 30 years ago, I was the undisputed heavyweight boxing champion of the world, the youngest heavyweight champ in history, a record that will never be broken, the youngest man to unify all 3 heavyweight titles and become the undisputed world champ. But fast forward to last year, and I wasn't fighting for a title, I was fighting for my life. I was fat, sick, and damn near dead, 100 pounds overweight, weaker than I'd ever been since I was 14 years old, insulin resistance, high blood pressure. My cardiologist warned me that I had to get it together or prepare for a heart attack or a stroke. It was pathetic. I'd walked away from boxing at the height of my fame in order to save my sanity and my soul. More on that in a second. And it almost cost me my life. What's crazy is that it wasn't the warning from my doctor that set me straight. It was my pride. An embarrassing wake-up call last year led me to realize that I had to act fast or risk dying and leaving my family alone to face the world without me. And that one moment set off a transformation that shocked the world and sent me into the fight of my life to reclaim my body and my legacy once and for all. Because of who I am, I was able to bring together the best and brightest minds in the world on diet, exercise, training, and metabolism. I learned the real reason my body was shutting down, the emasculating process that's happening to all men, the embarrassing march of time that we all think is part of normal aging, that is robbing us of our strength, our power, and our manhood one day at a time. They showed me a simple and natural 60-second routine to add to my day, to get my energy, my vitality, and my strength back, this time for good, just by reversing something so simple, so common, no one ever even thinks about it, even though doctors and researchers have known about it for years. I'm gonna keep going just a little bit more on the lead, then I promise I have a lot to say about this. In fact, in hindsight, it was so easy and so obvious, I can't believe I never heard of it before, but it helped me to destroy the embarrassing dad bod guys seem to be so proud of these days. To melt off the fat that bulged out over my size 44 pants, making it embarrassing to even tuck in my damn shirt. To reset my blood sugar and metabolism so I didn't have to worry about dying 1 foot at a time as I got older. They showed me what's really happening on the inside of our bodies, sentencing us to a life of weight gain, weakness, endless hunger, loss of our masculine power and pride. And I can tell you right now that this isn't what you think it is. It wasn't some new workout or crazy diet. I'll tell you, I've tried all of those. In fact, this is something I do no matter what diet I'm following, vegan, paleo, high carb, low fat, it doesn't matter. I learned a new way to fuel, power, and grow my muscles naturally using something my doctors call the ignition matrix. I like to call it the iron matrix because it helps me feel like the old me, but better. And the ignition matrix isn't some crazy workout, though I do have a few of these now, thanks to my new strength coach. It's a simple list of ingredients that I take every day, twice a day. Most of them you've probably already heard of. Learning what I know now, I was able to quickly add 15 pounds of rock hard, powerful, punishing muscle, melt off over 100 pounds of artery clogging fat in under 6 months, get my body back to the best shape of my life, better today than I was even in my prime, restore the punching power that literally saved my life as a kid, but I thought disappeared as I got older, and go on to fight in the biggest heavyweight boxing match in the last 10 years without risky hormone therapy, whatever the fuck that is, crazy ass fad diet, surgery, starving myself, or taking any of the usual shortcuts people think all celebrities have access to. My results speak for themselves, and I want to share with you exactly what I learned so you can take back your own power and almost feel like a kid again, full of drive and focus and energy, able to take on the road and go all day and all night. I'm gonna stop here for a second, but that's a lot of the lead here, right? So, but the first question I would do is if we go all the way back to the headline, which I would almost count the headline as this whole screen here. Let's give that the benefit of the doubt. But if we look at the headline here, if you read this, right, who's this webpage for? Let's just start with a really basic question, right? Someone put it in there, men over 50, men. This is the old control for people just joining us. Yeah, this is the old version. Middle-aged man, overweight, no idea. 40-year-old man, lost of pride over the hill. Not easy to know. Everyone around 50 years like me, men over 50 who know Mike Tyson. Men wanting to lose weight. Okay, cool. Yeah, a lot of stuff there. So here's my immediate issue is I don't feel like I really know, right? Okay, this is about Mike Tyson, although it doesn't say Mike Tyson anywhere here. So if somebody, and Justin pointed this out actually the first time we were looking at it together, is it's not really clear this is Mike Tyson. Some people would come to this and not immediately recognize Mike Tyson. Yes, he's very famous, but you don't actually know it's Mike Tyson. So, okay, it seems like it's about a boxer. It does say before 60, after 60. So we kind of have a little bit of an age indication here. Losing strength, like losing speed, losing pride, replacing muscle with fat, getting energy back, stop feeling like life is slipping away. Someone who maybe thinks that they need to eat protein and exercise. So basically this is like it's not very clear who the offer is actually for. And there's not one, because in the second question, what is the main problem the prospect is facing, right? Actually look at the headline complex, right? What is their number one problem or pain point that we're hoping can get resolved, right? And if we look at it here, we don't really know. Getting older, body breaking down, but that's not really like a super urgent or visceral pain point. There's not this sort of waking up being like, every day I'm losing a little more strength and a little more speed and a little more pride, and man, it feels like every ounce of muscle is replaced by an ounce of fat. You know, I get my energy and my life back. Like there's parts of it, but there's no singular focus or singular pain point or things like that, right? So that's sort of immediately number one. And so I'm going to keep going through this old version, which is not the control, and I'll come back to my version, right? So if we actually go to the lead, we start with ability, sure, right? Now we know it's Mike Tyson, in case you didn't know before, right? And it kind of goes off like the baseball card stats, right? 30 years ago, I was the undisputed heavyweight boxing champion of the world, and a champ in history, a record that will be broken, the youngest man. It's sort of like, all right, great, Mike. Like, but if I'm just the target demo, I don't know if this is for me. Now I'm reading about Mike sort of bragging about himself, and I'm like, okay, like, cool. Sounds good, Mike, right? We still don't really know as we keep going what the main pain point is, right? There's 100 pounds overweight, weak, fat, sick, and damn near dead, insulin resistance, high blood pressure, potentially a heart attack, right? So it's still like it's very vague or not specific, like about what the pain point would be. And then like, if we kind of going like one big question I have, right, is the what's in it for me test, right? Like what, if I'm the reader, like what's in it for me? Are you going to promise me a solution? So first of all, I don't think you really understand me yet, because you're just talking about a lot of variety of stuff here. And then second of all, we think about when we actually talk to like, hey, you know, things turned around and I'm going to show you how you can use the same solution that I use to turn things around. It's really all the way, like, yeah, it says he reversed to something, but it's still about him. It's really only all the way down here. I want to share with you exactly what I learned so you can take back your own power. So if we actually look, I did this here. This is my version. We'll come back to that. This version from the control, if we go through all of the copy, which I have in this Word document, right before we get to the part about, you know, exactly what I learned, right? 747 words, right? That's like, that's a long time before you're getting to like a promise of, hey, I'm going to help solve your pain point or problem, right? So that's like a really important note to kind of make right away as well. That's like I see as a common mistake actually very often, is you can talk about a story or a pain point or things like that, but you have to circle it back to like the prospect who is interacting with copy and kind of seeing that, hey, I'm going to show you the solution, what's in it, you know, I'm going to answer what's in it for you in that problem, right, or that pain point. See my other notes here. Another note is I think that this whole thing it's what I would call it's like passive and external, as in the whole story is sort of like, this happened to me, these events and facts and things happened to me, right? I started gaining weight, I had an interaction with my doctor, it's a very like dynamic, like or sorry, very static, like one-way story of things that sort of happened externally to Mike Tyson. We're gonna compare and contrast that with the beat your control thing in a second here, right? But I think that's also really important. And yeah, I just know that's super relatable. So those are some of the main things with this version that I want to share. Now I'm going to go through.
Stefan, let's stay up at the headline. I got one point I want to make real quick. 100%, I agree with you that like everything is just like a little off with not being specific enough and all that. But my big thing, like when we compare yours to this headline is so flat and not intriguing compared to yours. It's like night and day. And there's a reason why, like you could have literally just changed the headline and probably gotten a huge boost simply from how much more engaging and just more engaging and hard hitting your headline is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about that. One thing I want to talk about, because this ties into my headline and my version, is as I was looking at this control and I was going through it, right, all this stuff with Mike, I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. So we're still kind of in the lead. I zoomed out one for me. Okay, like he's sort of in this bad situation. He's gotten fat. This is like the background story, right? Kind of about all my life, I fought to keep fear and shame at bay, from fear of my tormentors, fear of my mother, fear of the animal inside me. So still kind of talking about him, and it's a lot about him and how sad he is. I was gonna get the old me back. And it's kind of buried down here in this original version. What a lot of people don't know is that I've struggled with weight my entire life. My adopted father, cuz, was always getting on me about my weight. People look at old pictures and videos and say I'm crazy, but I never had a moment's peace when it came to my weight. I was completely avoiding all my favorite foods and training like a maniac. It was the only way I could stay lean, even as a kid. Even if I ever slipped up, cuz would say, Mike, your ass is getting fat. Anyone who has ever fought or wrestled competitively has tried wearing trash bags to sweat more and make weight. But I used to wear them for weeks at a time, only taking them off to climb into a scalding hot bath to try to sweat out a few more ounces. Even after I was a heavyweight champ, the baddest man on earth, the newspaper headlines called me the overweight heavyweight, right? Mike Tyson, the overweight heavyweight, trains for Bruno. I had just defended my belt in the boxing match of all time, but they still called me fat and doubted whether I'd be able to make weight for my fight. And for the record, I won that fight and weighed 221 pounds when I did. And it kind of goes on. Back then I could, force myself to lose weight. But like, as soon as I saw this, right, I'm like, this is really interesting because it makes Mike Tyson way more vulnerable and relatable and real. And like, there's way more authenticity, because another issue is you read all of the above, right, the original control about Mike and how he was getting fat. And you're like, yeah, sure, but you're Mike Tyson. So of course you're a genetic freak. I guess you just ate really crappy, but then I guess you're able to just, you just flip the switch and got, got skinny again, right? Mike Tyson and his weight, kind of weight loss is not necessarily relatable. It's Mike Tyson. How do I relate to Mike Tyson? But suddenly hearing about how he always felt like, he was always struggling with his weight. People were calling him fat. He was doing all this stuff to stay skinny. So suddenly it's more relatable, because I'm like, oh, I've always tried to keep my weight down, right? Suddenly he's a much more relatable spokesperson or avatar. It doesn't matter if it's Mike Tyson. That's great. That'll get eyeballs on it. But if somebody can't relate to Mike Tyson, it doesn't mean that they're just going to buy because it's Mike Tyson saying it, right? Some random small percentage of people will. But if you actually relate to Mike Tyson and are like, oh my God, we have this in common, you're much more likely to actually, want to buy from Mike. So I guess a really important note. So that is going to frame the version that I did, which we'll have up here, right? So I'll put the link in here. Okay, so let's look at my headline, right? Mike Tyson confessional bombshell. I used to talk about ripping my opponent's heart out, but inside I've always felt like a fat, scared little kid. Here's how the finally reclaimed his manhood, all while dropping 83 pounds of retirement weight that had been piling into his gut and leaving him sluggish, exhausted, and knocking at death's door, right? So if we look at this headline complex, and we're like, all right, who's this page for? Well, it's about Mike, sure, but we talk about retirement weight. So it's kind of about people who are getting older. It's clearly about weight loss, right? It's clearly about losing weight, burning fat. It's about manhood. It's clearly for men, but it's very clearly about burning weight. And in addition to that, the nice thing about this headline is it also can relate to people who can relate to Mike, right? Immediately, I used to be a fat kid, right? So immediately as I heard his story and how he always felt like I could relate to that. Cause I'm like, oh, I used to be like, I still have a little bit of a fat kid inside me. And I've finally in the last 5 years, I don't feel like a fat kid secretly, right? It took me a long time, but I'm like, wow, I can really relate to that. So going back to empathy, I immediately was like, I can relate, if I can relate, I bet other people can relate too. And so there's a level of this relating to anybody who's ever felt a little insecure or kind of like, just like a little like vulnerable, but been afraid to admit it. But here we have Mike admitting it. And then the other part is it kind of reads like a tabloid, right? Like a celebrity gossip tabloid thing. And yeah, like Mike Emery said, great magazine style headline there. When we have that, like brains are wired for gossip, right? Gossip and curiosity. There's a thing I've talked about this before, but from Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, talks about how one of the main theories about how language first evolved was probably for gossip. Because if you're in like a little kind of tribe of 100 people and you have to be like, hey, like that person's dangerous, don't go home with him, or oh, he's sleeping with her, so if you try to sleep with her or you try to sleep with him, in our tribe, like there's a pretty strong evidence that like literally our brains, like speech evolved so that we could gossip, and our brains are wired since the beginning for gossip, right? And so when you think about that, this is like that. It's the same reason that celebrity gossip stuff and magazines and TMZ and all these things sort of exist for such a long time, right? It's got the gossip effect, and then there is a good kind of contrast, as like Jazz pointed out, where it's like externally I'm this sort of tough guy. You've always thought me as this tough guy, but I have this vulnerable side. And by having that alone, it sort of gives them permission, like to also feel vulnerable, right? If your prospect can let themselves feel vulnerable or open to new things as they're reading your copy, when you're vulnerable, you're in more of a susceptible state to take on suggestions, including suggestions about changing something in your life or buying a product. So by immediately creating a bit more vulnerability, you have your prospect in a more susceptible state. So I'll stop there on the headline for a second. I know there's questions coming in. Some obvious things real quick, this got asked before. Yeah, Mike is actually the person, he actually uses the product. Like we didn't just randomly, like I'm not randomly just using Mike Tyson's image and stuff like that without him like he's literally like, if you see online, we get retargeted ads of him with the product, using it, drinking it, stuff like that. And then I guess I'll file 2 notes on the headline right here, Mike Tyson, right? There's no question. If you go back to the original headline where you're like, you probably noticed Mike Tyson, maybe you don't. It's like very clear, Mike Tyson, confessional bombshell. And then this picture is like, it's very clearly that's Mike Tyson. We've all seen him recently. We know that's Mike Tyson. People who are born like they're in the market, but there's lots of people who might not realize this is Mike Tyson just from glancing at this, right? Justin, you want to talk about the headline at all before we go on to the rest of it?
No, I think you really nailed kind of the big differences. I mean, this one just hits so much harder. It's one of those things where like I always say, like a great headline, like you just know it when you see it because you just internally feel it in your gut. And this, when I first read this, I had that exact feeling. I was like, wow, that just nailed it. A couple other people have chimed in kind of on the design. I agree. Like I think the design on this is awesome. So many people kind of design wise kind of overdo it and put too much, and it takes away from the actual words too much. I think this is a great blend of imagery and headline together that really just blends perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. I think Akshay Gupta is the one who did the design. So shout out to Akshay if he's watching or whatever it is. All right, cool. Let me go through and read a bit more of the lead here. Okay. Freak athlete, an animal inside the ring, not human. Right. These are things that we think about with Mike Tyson too, right? The non-relatable Mike Tyson. Anyone who's old enough to remember me in my prime probably has an image of me like this, which is him over here. But what if I told you that inside my own head, I've always seen myself like this? And now I've got him like fat, right? That's a photo of me from a few years back. And while my weight gain was shocking to a lot of people, to me, that was how it was always going to be. Me, a fat piece of shit. And the truth is that when my weight started to skyrocket a few years back, at first I didn't even care. I'd always been fat inside my mind ever since the 80s when people would comment on my weight constantly. Mike Tyson, the overweight heavyweight, trains for Bruno, right? The same thing from the previous letter, but way earlier. And the truth is, I did things to stay skinny that would make people with an eating disorder blush. I'll share more about some of the most fucked up things I was doing behind the scenes in a minute. But more importantly, in the next few moments, I want to tell you how I woke the fuck up how I dropped 83 pounds or over 83 pounds, and how for the first time in my life, I lost this weight the right way by making one single change to my diet. Before and after, so the proof on this, right? This is something that I know pretty much anyone can do too. You don't need to be a genetic freak. I'll prove that inside this letter. And the single tweak has already helped thousands of guys to drop an extra 7 or even 22 pounds from their bellies, while taking a rolling pin to their saggy man boobs and replacing them with flat, hard pecs. And it's leaving them feeling like a virile, powerful animal all day long and all day night too. Now, I'll keep going in a minute, right? But yeah, like Max has put in there, it's a single tweak. It's one single thing I did, or that Mike did. Right, how I'm gonna tell you more importantly than all of this, I'm gonna tell you how I woke the fuck up. So going back to what's in it for me, and this thing that anyone else can do too. So if we go back to what I shared with that previous document, so remember originally, basically until it said, I want to share with you what I learned so you can take back your own power. That was after 747 words. But if you look at my version here, the pictures of it, it's 210 words. Right. So basically like I said, 500 words less until we got to basically the what's in it for me. So again, that's important because I still talk about Mike and his story a bit, but I'm quickly being like, and this is something that, is going to help you too, that other people can use, that you can, have benefits from. Again, I see that where people go for an emotional story type of lead or things like that, and they just keep focusing on the negative and the pain points and all of that, but they don't come back to like the desired outcome, right? It's sort of like for the spokesperson, it's like, I used to be in pain, now I'm not, now things are great. I'm gonna show you exactly how I got from point A to point B. But sometimes people just kind of go, I used to be in pain, let me tell you about point A for a really long time. And by the time they get to point B, somebody's like, God, I don't want to hear you keep like talking about how much pain you're in, how awful it was. Like, I'm sorry about that, man, but like, life's gotta go on, right? So I think that's a really important distinction. I wanted to be jarring and really was attention, right? So again, like I wanted the whole vulnerability of like, the same guy you thought of as like, I'm gonna eat his children, I'm gonna rip his heart out, all this shit from Mike Tyson. Like, but what if like, it makes you fascinated immediately, I think. There's an inherent fascination because like, right away, you're like, God, but he's as an insecure fat kid, right? And then you see that, you're like, well, shit, maybe he did always struggle with his weight. Maybe he did always have it, right? There's easily proof of the photos. You might ask, why are the photos to the side? I personally don't do my copy this way, but Justin preaches it. I've never split tested, and I should. Justin, I know the reason you recommend photos to the side is you don't like interrupting the flow of the copy. And if you have pictures like in between them like this, then it kind of interrupts the flow for people, right? Yeah. And so, even like me, a fat piece of shit, like I wanted, like, that's like a fucking jarring line, right? Like, that's pretty jarring, me, a fat piece of shit. But like, I really wanted to jar people and to bring them out.
Stefan,
okay.
one thing I think would be great to point out, one of the great things that the best copywriters do is they're able to write in the voice of the person that's the spokesperson. And so if you were writing for a doctor, you obviously would not use language like this. But,
right, yes.
But for this type of copy with Mike Tyson, it would convert much, much worse if you use kind of just flat doctor professional kind of copy. People know how Mike Tyson talks. They know what he sounds like. They know some of the outrageous shit he says. So this works perfectly for this type of thing. So that's kind of a good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, and one thing I want to really emphasize going back to this is if like the original control and the lead was sort of passive and external, like this sort of happened to me, here's the facts, right? This is like active and internal, right? Instead of telling you about facts, like this is more about this is what was happening to me on the inside. Here's how I felt, right? These are the emotions, feelings, and the triumphs, like the things inside of me. Like it's less about like a story that's moving, like an external story, more of an internal story of how I felt inside. That's sort of like a new lead type that Justin kind of teased, is like the story is more about like this internal struggle and journey than it is like an external thing of just very basic, here are the facts. It's very interesting, right? Because again, it's not like a ton of stuff has happened. I'm about him seeing the doctor and putting on very specifics of staying in front of the mirror one day. It's literally just him talking about how he was putting on weight and he felt like a piece of shit. And then here's a story of how he'd always felt like a piece of shit inside his mind, right? A fat piece of shit. So I think that's really the interesting paradigm shift. It is weird referring to Mike Tyson as a fat piece of shit. Not sure.
One other thing I want to add, Stefan, and we talked about this when we were on the Cup Accelerator call going over this. You really changed the appeal of this, which I think probably had the biggest effect, because the weight loss appeals to way more people than my legs are hurting and I'm putting on a few pounds and my muscles kind of hurt and I don't feel as good as I used to. That was just too general of an appeal, but going straight for weight loss just makes it so much more appealing to way more people, because just more people are simply overweight and dealing with that problem. And it's a much more, we always talk about this, the bleeding neck problem. Being overweight is a much more bleeding neck problem than like slowly feeling older each day.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for explicitly pointing that out. I meant to, it's a super important point. Yeah, I mean, I saw the weight loss thing in the control, and that it was like being teased and jumped around. And like, then, yeah, Mike had to approve the copy, Donnie. And it was, yeah, I was jumping around. So I'm like, I know weight loss works, and especially with Mike Tyson, let me just focus on this one single thing. Yeah, for example, by the way, fun story on that, because I had, inside, I've always felt like a scared little fatty or something like that. That was my original copy here, but he didn't like being referred to as a little fatty, so we had to change it to say a fat scared little kid, even though it's a little thing. He didn't like being called a little fatty. So there's some kind of specific stuff like that, right? But yeah, it's all about weight loss, right? I'm making one single tweak to my diet. Let me kind of keep going on the lead and do the rest of this here. This is something that I know pretty much anyone can do too. You don't need to be, like I mentioned, I did this part already, but you don't need to be a genetic freak. So we're addressing the objection that, hey, Mike Tyson, you must be a genetic freak, right? I'll prove that. There's one single tweak. I read this part a minute ago. And then further benefits beyond just weight loss, right? Rolling into your saggy man boobs, flat hard pecs instead, and feeling like a virile, powerful animal all day long. That was sort of what the promise of the original version was, but it was done in the context of like all this other like shit about just getting old and stuff like that, right? So of course they want that, but we have that sort of as a secondary or tertiary kind of benefit, where it's very clearly about how to like support healthy weight loss. Okay, for me personally, this one single change to my diet allowed me to start burning away the pounds of fat I've been packing on for years. I began building hard muscle like I had back when I was on top of the world. I was sleeping like a baby each night and waking up with all day energy. And really, I know I should be a space here. And really, I just felt like a superhuman again for the first time since the 90s. And here's a spoiler for you. Although this one diet tweak I made did end up putting my body into a highly anabolic state, one where it was like my stomach had no option but to turn fat into muscle, and where my senses got heightened and I started feeling like an apex predator, this one change I did to my diet has nothing to do with steroids, testosterone, or HGH. And I sure as shit wasn't doing cardio or prancing around in some Pilates class either. Nope, I kept eating like the fat kid I've always believed myself to be, but it just didn't matter. My body came alive. And now I want to share my secret with you. Because no matter if you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or you're some white-bearded, wrinkly asshole geriatric in a nursing home, making this one single change to your diet can transform your physical performance along with the way you look, move, and feel, starting virtually right away. Curious? Then let's jump right in. And then from here, this is the rest of the letter, right?
Stefan, let's pause there.
Yeah, that was it for this. Yeah.
One thing I really want to point out to everybody. So let's go back up to the one thing part where that subheader.
This one here, this one changed my diet, or a different one?
Just above.
Oh, this one changed.
Yeah. So this is a very important point for anybody that's writing copy. The kind of one thing and making it this kind of easy one thing is what everybody wants when it comes to anything involving transformation, whether that's making money, whether that's losing weight, whether that's finding a significant other. Nobody wants anything complicated. Nobody wants a 6-step process. They want one thing. And the more you can get close to that one thing and really hammer that home, it's gonna sell so much better. This is one of those things that probably took me 10, 15 years of writing copy to really understand. But this is a very, very powerful. I mean, you see this in all the best VSLs, sales letters. All the best selling ones are all about this one little tiny tweak.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's something we'll actually see in the next lead we'll look at too, is like the same thing, the power of just this one thing, right? Like me, this one tweak, this one thing is missing, like Donnie put in there. You've got 99%, you're just missing 1%. There's just this one single thing, right? Honestly, and yeah, so that's a really important point. Going back to like promises, right? So if your focus is burning fat and weight loss, it doesn't mean you can't say other benefits as well, but you just wait until later and you kind of add them in. That's the way I do this, right? So, sleeping like a baby, felt superhuman, building muscle, right? So it's like we can still talk about that stuff. It's not the big promise. We sort of throw that in as, and on top of the main promise, here's other great benefits that I got. By the way, as far as how long it took me to write this, yeah, it took me probably about 35 minutes, honestly. It was before our copy starter event in Scottsdale, and I was like, shit, I owe Steve these leads. And I worked out, and I was like, but I gotta go get like gotta go do a live event for the next 3 days. And I was like, all right, well, I'm like, I had some ideas. I looked at previous control, and like the fat stuff, the struggles with his weight had already really stuck out to me. So then I basically just started looking at some interviews with Mike Tyson, and something just fucking came to me, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. I know that's not a great way to teach because it's not like a process, but just being completely real with you, it took me like 30 minutes. But that's part of mastering, is getting really good at copy, is like I can do stuff in a fraction of time. For the lead, the rest of the letter is still tight. Steve's original control. I'll come back to other questions in a little bit. I want to kind of point out any other stuff here. Again, right, you're thinking, it's Mike Tyson, maybe with steroids. We're addressing objections. People always ask about objections or skepticism, right? It's like, anything to do with steroids or testosterone or HGH, right? Wasn't cardio. But instead of just saying it wasn't like, and it wasn't because of exercise, right? It wasn't doing cardio or prancing around in some Pilates class. Like I like prancing around. Like I wanted to really capture Mike's voice like through the rest of this, right? So I put the link in, I'll put it in again here for those who relate to it. There's a link to the letter.
Yeah, Stefan, I think the objections is really interesting because a lot of copywriters address the objections too late. And you really got to be in the mindset of the reader and address them as they would come up in their head. So like if you were selling to somebody one-on-one, obviously objections would come up and you'd be able to just counter them then. But when somebody's reading this at home, you don't have that ability. So you have to actually think like them as much as possible and bring those objections up right when you kind of think they're going to start popping in their head. So when he's showing off how Mike got in incredible shape, most dudes who are reading this are probably like, yeah, well, you're probably on roids. That's the first thing that's popping into every guy's head. So Stefan was super smart of addressing that early on so that you can just knock that objection down.
Yeah. I mean, people have brought that up to me actually with like my whole RMBC method, and like there's not a place where it says address objections. And the reason why is because I'm addressing objections throughout like the entire letter, I guess, right? I'm not just sort of waiting until the end, because objections may come up way faster. Something, again, like you're Mike Tyson, you must be a genetic freak, right? And it's like I said up here, you don't need to be a genetic freak. Nope, I'll prove it to you, right? Addressing an objection, like, well, you're Mike Tyson. Oh, well, you're probably taking steroids, you're Mike Tyson. Nope, wasn't steroids. Well, I'm older than you. Nope, doesn't matter what age you are, right? Even if you're a bearded, wrinkly, old ass geriatric in a nursing home, right? Love that line. That's probably my favorite line from the lead. And it just was like trying to channel full on Mike Tyson, right?
That just keep in mind, like objection, every single niche has their own objections. Like if we're selling something to copywriters, there's going to be objections coming up of like, yeah, well, I'm not Stefan and I'm not a great writer, or I don't understand English that well, or there's all kinds of objections that are coming up in people's heads, and we would need to address those in copy. Just like if you're selling a weight loss thing, there's going to be a ton of objections coming up with like, yeah, but I have really bad genetics. Everybody in my family's fat. Like these are all things you need to address when they start popping up in the person's head.
Yeah, 100%. And that's people asking, how did I channel? Like, how do you channel the voice, right? Yeah, I mean, all I did is I put on a couple of YouTube videos, like with Mike Tyson, where he was being interviewed, and then I was like, all right, I feel it, and I just like went. It's almost like I don't know, like I'm like a thoroughbred, right? That's like the horse is getting ready, and then the gun starts, but like it's like I start off calm, but then there's like as soon as I feel like I'm in a rhythm where I'm hearing Mike Tyson's voice, I'll just go, and I'll do that with other experts as well. Like if I like Vince from V Shred, right? It was like when I wrote the Burn VSL, I'm like watching all these other YouTube videos of Vince until I could really hear Vince in my head. I'm like, all right, go. And I know it seems weird, but like really, that's exactly what I do. I just sort of, yeah, I mean, YouTube's, that's why if the spokesperson, like I saw George Anastasis is on this call, right? Luke and I just crushed his control for Arthrazine, holler, holler. We're gonna actually break that down in the copy starter call next week. Sorry, I'm not gonna do it publicly yet and blow George's stuff up, but even with George, I interviewed George like right away when we were doing the Beat Your Control, and I had like an hour-long video because it's from George's perspective. And that way, like as soon as we went to write for George, I could watch the replay and Luke could watch the replay and we could write in George's voice or head, right? So even if they're not famous, ask them to get on a call, interview them, record it, re-listen to it, re-watch it. All that kind of stuff is really important for capturing the voice, and you'll have fun doing it if you're a weirdo like me. Yeah. Oh, last thing too. I think, Dan Ferrari and the control he wrote for that Genesis offer back in the day, he had the whole part about how seniors like look, feel, and move, or look, move, and feel. And I just always love that line. So I probably swiped that line from Dan like 10 different times now. And I have it here too, because I just know it worked in that control. So I'm always just sticking it into things. You'll see in so much copy. I'm pretty sure it's actually in the Arthrazine thing for George too. Like we put something really similar. So it's just funny where if you find a line that works, like you can sneak it in multiple places, right? And Dave, the actual product is, I mean, you get the link to it so you can look, but it's like amino acids and some other stuff like that, to like enzymes that are helping with building muscle and the anabolic process and all this other stuff. Okay. Yeah, that one's really good, Donnie. I think it's somewhere in the CA file, so I'm going to hook you up with it for sure. It's a really good letter. Okay, cool. So that's the IN21 one. So this one's a Beat Your Control. The next one I want to do is it's a pet supplement that Luke and I did for Mattia Paganelli and his partners. They're in the European market. It's scaled to several hundred, front ends a day. I think last I heard their cost per acquisition was like $30, $33. Their AOV is like $112. So it's like basically a 4x ROAS at volume. So they're just trying to make sure they have enough product and things like that to scale. So I'm going to show you that one because it's in the European market and in Italian and stuff like that. I'm going to show the script showing a Word document versus like a formatted one. But I'm actually going to show you for a different client that I wrote a pet supplement offer for, right? So this is for a company called Front of the Pack, and you may have seen them. They are, all around. They've advertised a lot. They're more of an e-com company, but they want to do like a VSL, make this way bigger. Okay, so this is not the one that I'm going to be going for Mattia, but it's with a really famous celebrity vet named Dr. Miller. And I want to kind of share just part of the lead for this one, which was done a little bit more like a documentary style, because it will tie into the lead that is working for Mattia right now. Right, so it starts with the doctor, the vet. Right, everyone is always asking me, dry food, raw food, wet food, dehydrated food, table scraps, what should I be feeding my dog? And then what brand? Does it need to be organic? Is that premium dog food I see at the store really all that premium? What about grains and glutens? What percentage protein? What should the first ingredient be? I understand why people ask questions. We all love our dogs and we think of them as part of our family. When it comes to the health and longevity of our dogs, there's something much more important you should be focusing on. And it's not what's in all these dog foods, it's what they're all missing. We have a narrator coming in, right? Dr. Scott Miller has 22 years of experience as a practicing veterinary surgeon. He's a star of the TV show Vet on the Hill, which airs in countries across the world, including the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. And he's been featured on numerous morning shows as the media's go-to expert for pet wellness. He says when it comes to our dogs' diets and the diets we feed and the foods we feed them, there's one crucial aspect that almost all of us are getting wrong. Dr. Miller, fix that. No, one crucial aspect, right? Fix that, make these small tweaks to their diet, which by the way, they take all of 10 seconds and your dog is not even going to notice or care that you do this, no matter how picky of an eater they are. And surely it can be like you've got a brand new dog. And they've got some testimonials, and it kind of goes back to like this one change, right? So one 10-second tweak. That's sort of like the promise. And this is like a powdered supplement type thing that we're putting that they sell for dogs. And so that was one variant of the lead for Front of the Pack. The other variant started with an emotional story about this dog that he rescued called Sunny Frango, and how this dog had looked terrible and needed help. It was scrawny and patchy. You could see his ribs. He was off. He was nervous. And then, right, he basically ended up helping the dog because of one tweak, right? So this one for the client was like doing really pretty good metrics wise, but they haven't really scaled it. And I kind of went through the funnel and looked at why. And a big part of it is they're doing it through Shopify. They don't have upsells. When you get to the bottom, there's like sort of like, there's a bunch of things they just don't have the direct response experience. And so I hope that they will scale it one day. But I knew that these ideas were good, right? This stuff works, but I'm like, it hasn't really worked here yet. So then when it got to do the pet supplement for Mattia, which is a kind of similar type of product, you'll see how Luke and I sort of took a similar approach with this one thing, but simplified it a bit, right? So this version, which is one they're currently using, we have a bunch of other leads from the test, right? In my 13 years, I should make it even bigger for y'all. We got 175. Right. In my 13 years as a canine nutritionist, I don't think I've ever seen anything this bad. Stiff joints, itchy skin, red spots, gas, fur falling out, limping. Make no mistake about it, dogs today are facing a serious health crisis, and it doesn't matter if you're feeding them the most premium kibble, organic canned foods, whole foods, raw foods, or $50 ribeyes. Every single one of these diets is lacking one critical thing your dog needs. Clients will come up to me, and this goes back to the guy now. Clients will come up to me and tell me their dog is shedding all over the place, or they can barely hobble up the stairs anymore, or can't go more than a few minutes without itching themselves. They're always asking me, just what can I do to help them? Vitamins, probiotics, raw foods, medications, all this confusing and none of it's helping. That's why when I show them just how simple it can be to fix their dog's diet, that's when I show them how simple it can be to fix their dog's diet. Weeks later, they'll come up to me and say, oh my God, it actually worked. He's wagging so hard now, I'm worried he's going to knock himself over. It's like I got my old dog back. I'll come back to the rest of that here. So is this lead as amazing as the Mike Tyson lead in some respects? No, but it's still very good and we know it works. And it's taking the stuff that we already knew worked from the previous front of the pack letter and it's applying it here. So there's sort of like an open loop almost with this like one bad case of a dog, but then we're not going to keep going with it and tell this whole emotional story. Instead, we're going to kind of get right into like some of the pain points that the dog owner is dealing with and facing, right? So for example, like we talked about how some people were trying to ask about raw food, wet food, like what type of food, right? Well, literally right here, you know, it doesn't matter if you're feeding them premium kibble, organic canned foods, whole foods, raw foods, $50 ribeyes, but they're all lacking one critical thing. So it's again, very simple. It's one thing. It's not about a whole bunch of other stuff for the dog. It's just like, there's one thing they're missing, right? And then we really just went into like the pain points for like what dog owners who would buy this product are dealing with, right? So shedding, hobbling, itching, you know, what can I do to help, right? Back to basically the pain point is really confusion. My dog is kind of breaking down or doesn't seem healthy and I don't know why. And is it the food? Is it the medication? Right? What is it? Like, people are confused. And the truth is it's simple and easy, right? And then we took actual quotes from people who've used the product that are really compelling and solid. Product's like a supplement, like a kind of a powdered thing for dogs that they can add that's got a bunch of really great ingredients in it. Okay, so then like we come into this part here, which is saying that this is from research and going back to RMBC. Like going back to what are the pain points or what are dog owners really saying? You always hear about how one of the biggest pain points is always that you can look into the eyes of the dog, but the dog can't talk back to you. Like, you know, the dog's in pain, or you know the dog's struggling, or you think about how much you love the dog, but you don't know if you're doing the best things you can for your dog, right? As you look into their eyes. It can make you feel anxiety or sad or bad, right?
A lot of guilt, just hammering that guilt button.
Exactly, right? I know, Justin, you're a huge dog guy. I love my dog. I've been looking yesterday. I bother him. He's trying to sleep and I'm constantly rubbing his belly, but I'll look into his eyes and stuff, right? So have you ever looked into your dog's eyes and wondered, am I really giving them everything they need for a long, happy, healthy life? Maybe you've noticed they've been itching more lately, have red spots on their skin, or their fur is falling out more than usual. Maybe they've gotten older and you see them start to slow down, want to turn back early from long walks, or have trouble climbing into bed with you. Maybe it's digestive problems or a dull coat or a lack of energy, or maybe it's just a gut feeling that there's something missing from your dog's diet, but you just don't know what it is. Well, whatever might have brought you to this video, I'm glad you're here now, because as an expert in canine nutrition, I can tell you that there's one crucial thing missing from nearly all dog diets. It doesn't matter if you feed them kibble, canned food, or whole fresh ingredients. New evidence shows that all traditional dog diets are lacking one critical piece. And it's this missing piece that I believe is behind so many of the problems dog owners are facing today, whether it's skin related, gut related, joint related, or just a lack of energy. I'll come back to the rest of this in a second, but one other really quick note on this. Make sure I can remember it. Fuck.
I think as someone who loves dogs, you nailed this part where maybe they've gotten older. You see them start to slow down, want to turn back early on walks, or have trouble climbing. Like, that part just nails it. Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee that's a home run line with everybody who's watching this that loves dogs. It just hits you because you know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, 100%. And the point I was gonna bring up is we had David Deutsch on. He did a call for our Copy Accelerator members, and people bought ticket to our event and stuff. We were part of our program yesterday, and one thing we talked about is how when you're gonna do that, painting the picture of the pain, keeping it kind of conditional, right? Like maybe, because if you just sort of say like, oh, hey, like, yeah, I know what it's like. Your dog is old and breaking down, and you might be like, nope, I've got a younger dog, so not for me. Click away, right? Or if you're sort of saying like, now I know your dog's, got a dull coat. It's like, no, my dog's coat's pretty good. Click away, right? But that's why I'm very careful about this. And it was interesting hearing David talk about it yesterday, how he's the same way, where it's like, I'm very intentional about maybe it's this, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, or maybe it's none of that. Maybe it's just a gut feeling, right? So no matter what, it's like I'm sort of taking a bunch of shots, right? And it's like, I'm going to land with one of them, right? One of them's going to land. If none of these other things landed, which these are the common symptoms we see in research and all the reviews and all the comments. I mean, we're getting this from research, right? Basically like, so we know like that this is going to land, but for some reason it doesn't. And you fall back on the gut feeling, right? Maybe it's just a gut feeling. You just know something's wrong, which is the same thing you use for gut offers. If you look at Golden Hippo and they're sort of, I forget the name of it, one of the gut offers they had, the new gut fix, right? They talk about, maybe you just have a gut feeling that something's wrong in your gut, which by the way is why you can just swipe, right? They're talking about people, primarily women, who have a gut feeling something's wrong with their gut. And then basically like here we're talking about the gut feeling for your dog, but the gut feeling line just works. It's a good line to put into your copy. So I wanted to highlight that too. Again, one critical piece. And it's this missing piece that I believe is behind so many of the problems dog owners are facing today, whether it's skin related, gut related, joint related, or just a lack of energy. Luckily, once you know exactly what this missing piece is, it's easy to make a simple switch to your dog's diet to restore everything that's missing. I've used the same switch with hundreds of my clients' dogs, from tiny little Pomeranians to big Irish Wolfhounds, as well as for my own 4 dogs, Lycan, Dada, Stella, and Kartika. Remember, we're in the Italian market, so I guess Kartika maybe is a more popular Italian dog name than Lycan. And the results have been incredible. In the words of most of my clients, they almost border on the miraculous, because they can't believe how such a small change could have such a big impact on their dog's overall health. Itchy, inflamed skin becomes healthy again. Dull coats become soft, fluffy, and shiny again. Old dogs get their energy levels back, just like they had when they were puppies, while moody, anxious dogs become more friendly and comfortable around strangers. And almost all symptoms of digestive problems, from gas to constipation to diarrhea, clear up in just weeks, giving your dog smoother digestion and making your bathroom cleanup way easier. Everything from your dog's gums to their joints to their allergies will improve right before your eyes in just a short amount of time. And while all of those changes are working on the outside, inside your dog will enjoy improved immunity, a healthier heart, better brain function, and so much more. Truly, in just a matter of weeks, it can be like you have your old friend back. Best of all, this simple switch gives you the feeling of total confidence that you're giving your dog everything they need to enjoy a happy life, just like it did these people. The switch takes just 7 seconds a day. It works no matter what breed of dog you have, how big they are, what kind of food you feed them. It doesn't involve any pills, injections, cutting, freezing, messy cleanup, expensive supplements, or really any shopping at all. And while it may seem unbelievable, such a small change in your dog's diet can have such a profound effect on almost every aspect of their health. Once you see the simple science behind the solution, as well as the proof showing why traditional pet food diets can't give your dog all the nutrition they need, I'm sure that it will all make sense to you. In fact, if you're like most of my clients, you'll probably wonder why you never heard of it sooner. So what is this missing piece? Really, it couldn't be any simpler. It's saying that dogs used to enjoy in their diet for thousands of years, but which has been stolen right out of modern pet diets. I call it the ancestral advantage. It's based on the simple idea that if you want to feed your dog the optimal diet they need, then you have to begin by looking at how dogs are designed to eat. In this video, I'll tell you about it, as well as give you all the evidence that proves just how just one 7-second switch can transform the health of your dog. I'm gonna pause for a second here and we'll go back to the final part of it. Yeah, ancestral advantage is a really good sort of name. And this is funny because I use this in like a really old pet letter that never saw the light of day, but that I really liked. And then I've kind of like went through the same thing in front of the pack. And so now I use it again here with Mattia. And so, yeah, this idea of like essentially how your dog was designed to eat, because that's something I think we all think about is like, it's easy to think about a dog in the wild and think about how what they would eat there versus like processed kibble or dry food or things like that, right? And then I like that, someone I put in all caps, like, what's the one thing? It's like, that's the point, is actually to piss you off so you want to know, so you keep reading. All you're doing with the lead is scratching an itch, so someone wants to keep going and being like, fucking scratch this itch for me. And so, one thing I'll do though is I'll acknowledge that you're annoyed, like, why haven't I answered it? So I'll kind of fake answer it, right? So what is this missing piece? Well, it could be any simpler. It's something that, and I go back to teasing, but really, like, you cannot go wrong with like a lot of curiosity, in your leads. I mean, that's something I'm just so passionate about, especially as I stopped using kind of fake stories several years back for a variety of reasons. And when I stopped, I already used a lot of curiosity before then, but then I really started moving to more and more curiosity. But we're talking about the proof, right? Like, we're going to show you the proof of this. And then the final thing we have is just a few testimonials as well. I'll also share the 3 warning signs every dog owner must know in order to tell if their dog might be suffering from a nutritional gap. If you've ever seen your dog licking his paws a little too much, you won't want to miss this part. I'll also tell you about the 4 superfoods you can start sharing with your dog today, which you'll be happy to know are probably already in your kitchen right now. And I'll tell you about the 6 toxic human foods you should never give your dog, no matter how much they beg for them. A lot of dog owners are surprised by these because these foods seem so healthy to us, but they can be poisonous to your dog, like grapes, for example. Just a handful of these can send your dog straight to the emergency room. So if you're ready to cut through all the noise and confusion that surrounds what you should be feeding your dog, if you're ready to have total peace of mind that you're giving your dog everything they need without ever having to worry that there's something more you could be doing, and if you're ready to finally discover something that works to help get your old dog back, then you're in the right place. And I couldn't be more happy that you're here. So let's dive right in. And it goes on for the rest of it after that. That's actually one other really important point is, like, we're talking about the dog, right? And making the dog better. But then we got to relate back to the owner, because they're not just buying for the dog, they're buying for their peace of mind too. So they feel good, right? So when you have this here, it gives you the feeling of total confidence that you're giving your dog everything they need to enjoy a happy life. That's a huge thing. So it's not just your dog, but it's also you getting the confidence, right? You're going to feel better. You're not going to have to worry anymore. I'm going to relieve the things that you have, all that kind of stuff. So really beyond that, I mean, this whole thing is just super curiosity heavy, but it's also taking what I already know works and then just using it again, right? Like, don't try and reinvent the wheel, but instead keeping it pretty simple here.
You're really,
Justin, anything?
you're really allowing them to relieve the guilt that they have. Anybody, especially if you have a dog that's older, anybody who's had an older dog, you feel kind of helpless watching just like the march of time go on, and all of a sudden they start dragging their feet and they can't control their bowels, and like they're getting up slower, and it's just really hard to watch. And there's not a lot you can do about it. So there's obviously like cortisone shots and things like that, and there's supplements you can do, but you have a lot of guilt as being a dog owner that all this stuff's going on and I can't do anything about it. So I think Stefan does a really, really good job of kind of tapping into that guilt that any dog owner feels as their dog's getting older.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the huge thing. And obviously you have such a bond with your dog. I mean, I can tell you personally, like, you'll hear me like say things about me personally, but it's not because I'm trying to make it about myself, but because as a good copywriter, I am trying to relate my own life experiences to whatever I'm writing about. So even if my dog was only a year old, he was like trying to eating his toys and chewing on plastic, and he was kind of an asshole. And then in the last like month or two, like we, spent time actually training him better. And like suddenly I'm just like, oh shit, I'm so in love with this dog. I'm so bonded. Like I was at first, and I was kind of like, well, this dog's a little annoying, but I'm like so bonded to this dog now. And I'm realizing if I feel that way at age 1, I'm like, I thought about last night on the couch. I'm like, man, how am I gonna feel when this dog's like 10 or 11 or 12? And like, fuck, that's gonna break my heart. And like, gotta love him. And like, what can I be doing for him, right? And I'm feeling that way now, and already feeling kind of like guilty now. It's like, I know like when a dog's 10 or 11 or 12, I've had older dogs back in the day too, but really it's okay to inject some of your own personal experience into it. It'll generally make your copy better because you're able to really transfer your emotions and feelings more fully through it. So yeah, but really big things here, just a simple one thing, kind of again, like a simple thing, emotional. And this is really an example of from RMBC, like a lot of research. So these are the 2 main leads I wanted to share today. But next week, for those of you in Copy Accelerator, we're going to be, like I said, breaking down a 3rd lead, which is kind of a unbeatable control. It was Arthrazine that George Karanastasis had, that he ran for the last couple of years, did at least 50 million, maybe more. And he'd hired numerous copywriters. No one ever going to beat it. He tried to beat it himself. I think no one ever beat any of his copy, period, except for one time Mike Pavlich beat something of his back in 2009. But Luke and I did. And I'm going to go through that entire lead and everything else next week. So If you want to be a part of that, then all you really need to do is grab a ticket to our event if you haven't done that already. I mean, Justin, I don't know if you want me to share anything about that, or I'd be happy to kind of quickly mention it.
Yeah, let's tell them about the event. By the way, if you're coming to the event, feel free to pop something in the chat. I'm curious how many people on the call are coming to the event, either live or virtually. Let's see who's coming. Nice.
So many people were putting on host and panelists too. There's George, see you there, Jens. Yeah, you see a lot of people. That's going to be awesome. So yeah, I think like this is really one of the best ways to like I don't know if you want more of this, that's one of the best things to do, right? Because not only do you get to, the event is in Tampa, it's February 28th through March 2nd. We have a live like in person, and we have a virtual version as well. But some cool things I'm going to do is like Justin and I both give talks, and we have talks from various high level marketers as well. There's incredible networking and things like that. One of the ones I'm going to do, I'm really excited about, is I'm going to share like a very specific process for how to generate big ideas and hooks. So like, for example, if George is author, like how did I know? Luke presented me with 3 different options. Like, hey, here's 3 different ideas for what like the big idea and the mechanism could be. Like I knew immediately which one the winner was. But it wasn't actually even one of the ideas. It was buried in the 3rd idea, right? How did I know that? Part of it is using metaphors. Part of it is about kind of like the meme or mimetic component of copy. There's actually a bunch of really cool stuff about, I've never really given a presentation where I give you a specific formula for how to generate big ideas for copy, but I'm going to do that during my talk. And I'm really excited. I'm going to share examples of it, including, help you understand even better with Mike Tyson, things like that. Justin, I know you're doing a bunch of really awesome, what's that like, forget the one talk you're doing that I was really excited about.
Yeah, so I'm doing one on what I call the 3rd layer, which is most copywriters and business owners understand their customers on the 1st or 2nd layer. And it's really the biggest advantage really in business is understanding your customers better. And I'm going to show you how to dig down into the 3rd layer, which is the kind of the way they see the world, these beliefs they have, things that just get underneath and what they really want when they're buying something. You could be a much worse copywriter, but understand your customer much better, and you will beat better copywriters. So that's kind of the whole main idea behind giving that talk.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, because if you go back to the one from a T I just shared, right? I mean, like that's literally about understanding the market. Like that lead is like, there's some good lines in there. I don't think it's like the world's best written lead ever. It just really connects with the audience. People understand that, right? And so being able to understand how to come up with big ideas. I mean, those things alone are super valuable. But the best part probably is, you get access to the entire, almost the entire Copy Starter Mastermind when you get a ticket too. So we do weekly training calls. Like we had a call with David Deutsch yesterday, which was recorded, where he went through his copy and talked about fascinations and bullets and curiosity stuff. Like I mentioned, I'm breaking down George's, the Beat Your Control we did for George and Arthur Azine next week. We've had so many good calls lately. So we do this every week. You get access to all of the recordings. You also get one-on-one copy, or not one-on-one, but you get group copy feedback. So we have 3 different amazing group coaches. Ning Lee, who's copy chief at Paleo Hacks, helped them to scale to a strong 8-figure company. Like you can basically bring your copy to calls of Ning, and then you'll have a turn where he'll go through your copy, give you feedback, look at it live. Saba Karimi, who was formerly CMO for Rudy Mahler. She's the VP of marketing for VShred. She knows BizOps. She knows literally every type of e-com, every type of copy you can imagine. Sold easily over $100 million worth of stuff. You can bring stuff to calls with her. She'll go through, review your copy. If you're a business owner, bring your copy, writers stuff to the call. And then Mike Abramoff, who sold 9 figures worth of health and financial copy, one of the smartest copywriters. So you can really get feedback on your copy, figure out where you're at, or if you're a freelancer, you can figure out where you're at, where do you need to go. That helps you so many ways. You can figure out can you charge higher rates? What do you need to work on to get more clients? Things like that. For a business owner, if you're stuck, if you want like those people to look at your current control and be like, hey, here's 3 ideas for how to beat it. I mean, it's pretty insane. You get that. For the freelancers, there's a business of freelancing call, Brian Sparinello, talking about how to like charge higher rates, get better clients. We do a matchmaking thing at the event between business owners and copywriters. I've had 2 calls with 2 heads of, one's about $50 million a year company, one's a very healthy 9-figure company, let's say, in the last 2 days, that are both trying to hire a bunch of writers from the mastermind and coming to the event. There's a ton of other people. So for business owners, if you are looking for copywriters, this is where you can meet them. For freelancers, like we literally have matchmaking sessions. Yeah, I don't know. It's really the best event out there. And whether it's virtual or live, we basically cover everybody here.
Stefan,
so
one thing I want to add, a little fast action bonus that we're giving away to people.
Ooh, what you got there?
Ooh. So if you apply before midnight tonight to come to the event, we'll make that midnight Pacific time. We are giving away the videos from Stefan's original RMBC method event in Vegas, which was a $12,500 event. Every big name in direct marketing, from Evaldo to Alan Baylor to Steve Gray, everybody who was kind of anybody was at this event to learn from Stefan. And I don't think you've ever sold these, have you?
Nope, never sold it.
Yep. So you will get this as a free bonus if you apply to come to the event before midnight tonight. Obviously, you have to eventually buy a ticket. You can't just fill out an application and do nothing, but you'll get that. And then I have a course called Emails That Sell. It's an entire swipe file of the best multi-million-dollar emails in health, financial, biz op, golf. I mean, pretty dating, every niche under the sun. And I break down all the emails and show you how to write kind of the best emails that sell. You will get that as well. So 2 kind of pretty awesome bonuses, and those will be good as long as you apply before midnight Pacific time tonight.
So I must have muted. Yeah, last thing, I mean, when you apply to, why do you apply? Well, you talk to, Blake from our team, or sometimes we've had Sam helping and doing some calls. Like, it's really just to make sure you're not an asshole, honestly. It's like the no asshole rule. So it's not about your skill level. I know someone asked, is it good for beginners? Like, yeah, it is. It's for everywhere from, again, we're going to have 9-figure business owners. You have copywriters who've sold 9 figures, but you also have people who are very, very early on in their journey. So really, no matter what, it's worth checking out the sales letter, seeing about the event, who's there, all the good stuff. There's like open bars every night, catered food, at least 2 of the night, 3 of the night, every night. I don't know. Like, really take care of you once we're there. And like literally just means like, there's pretty much everything you can, how do you judge if I'm an asshole? Well, I have to hope, Sal, that you're not an asshole, but we literally are like, I don't know, there's nothing else like it. And again, you get access to this mastermind that's usually a minimum of $15,000 a year, $40,000 a year for the full version. And I don't know, it's really pretty tremendous. So even if you're curious, book a call. Always check out the sales letter, talk with Blake, and we'd love to see you there. We've got honestly like 80. I think we sold like 86 tickets. We have 115-ish applicants. So we've got some calls to still do. We've got, between all of our members, like it'll be about 500 people at least between physical and virtual, maybe more. And it's pretty much gonna be like a massive FOMO thing if you're not there. I really feel like it's pretty wild. I mean, and plus you're gonna have a community support, all the things you need. So I feel like if you don't take action on this, you're gonna just end up probably regretting it pretty hard.
Yeah. Did you talk at all about the speakers that we got?
No, I didn't really go through. Do you want to mention all the speakers?
Yeah. So we got, this is probably, probably one of our best lineups, if not the best. So Chris Evans from Traffic and Funnels, Alan Saltanek, who is just marketing genius, who doesn't speak anywhere. We got him to come speak. Then we have a copywriting panel with Kevin Rogers, Kim Kraus-Schwalm, and Marcella Allison, all 3 just amazing, true A-list copywriters. Ron Lynch, who is the infomercial king, is coming as well. So Ron is one of the guys who is behind, like, he helped launch GoPro. He helped do George Foreman's grill. He did, there's like, any big infomercial you've seen, Ron was behind it. And he's actually gonna be talking about some kind of infomercial secrets that you can use in VSLs and ads, which I think is gonna be a really, proactive Cindy Crawford. Pretty much everything he's been involved in. And then my good buddy, Jason Capital, he's gonna be rounding out the speakers. He's built 5 different multi-million-dollar businesses before the age of 30, which is pretty damn impressive. Has a huge following on Instagram, TikTok. And taught a lot of people in our mastermind copy. They kind of grew up in his world and came this way. So we got a pretty sweet lineup, and also some huge business owners coming to the event. If you are a copywriter and you're interested in picking up clients, this will be the event to pick up clients. There will probably be at least 30, 40, 50 business owners that are actively looking to hire. And we're going to be setting that up, whether you're virtual or whether you are live and in person. So that to me for a copywriter is probably the biggest thing. And then if you're a business owner, obviously learning all kinds of split tests and then networking and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I mean, that alone, I always do. Another talk I'm going to be doing is just basically biggest split test wins of the last 6 months. And I'll share ones for things I'm involved in, but I also crowdsource it from the business owners in the community. And it's like, I love it. It's very tactical, and it's something where there's almost guaranteed there's one test out of like the 7 to 12 that I share that you could literally just go take, apply to your business in 10 or 15 minutes and probably get like, like a 10x to 100x ROI on your ticket. And for the freelancers, it's like same thing, right? You just take these wins to a client you have, or like, hey, try this. You look like a genius. You get paid way more. So it's really like, it's pretty awesome, all the split test stuff. Like I love all the tactical things that we do, as well as, being a supportive and loving community. So yeah,
I would say, well, one last thing I would say, especially if you're newer or you're a copywriter who hasn't made a ton of money yet with copywriting, one of the biggest benefits of an event like this is being around people that are playing at a higher level than you. When you come in thinking, I'd be happy if I could just make like $3K a month writing copy, and then you're around copywriters that are making $10, $20, $40,000 a month, it completely changes the way you see things and what you believe is possible for you. This has been a kind of recurring theme in my life as well. And it's really cool to see in our events when you see someone coming in thinking that they think that this is the level they can get to. And then all of a sudden they're around people that are 5 levels higher and they start to realize what's really possible. That's always a great moment. So I would highly recommend just for that. You can come. So yeah, you can either book, like we said, either virtually or you can come in person. Obviously, if you can make it in person, we'd love to have you in person. It's such a good group, and you get to meet people, and there'll be cocktail parties and all the fun stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Seriously, they're one of the highlights of my year. I was telling Justin, we were talking, yesterday to he and I was saying how I'm like, man, like they don't even feel like work to me. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into them, but I just love being able to be there and meeting everybody and just sharing and we really try we try hard too. I mean, we literally, like, you're an introvert, you're social anxiety, you feel like the community is so welcoming that like you can't help but just be like welcomed and brought into the fold and to become a part of it. And so yeah, I just love all the success stories and people, the lives you see changed at these events and businesses that are changed and everything. So really excited for it.
Cool. All right. So we're going to wrap this up. As a quick reminder, if you want those bonuses, the RMBC Vegas events and my emails that sell course, make sure you apply to get your ticket before midnight Pacific time tonight, and we'll make sure you get those. Thanks again for showing up. Thanks again for playing all out and participating in the chat. We had almost 400 people, which was awesome. So hope you guys got a lot out of this call, got some stuff that you can implement that'll improve your copy. And yeah, we will see you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Really excited to see many of you soon. All right.